Om Shravanayapi Bhubiryo na Labhyaha Shrinvatopi Bhavo Yam Naviduhu Ascharyo Vakta Kushalo Shalabda Ascharyo Vakta Ascharyo Gyato Kushalo Nushishtaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The Atman, the indivisible self in all beings, is to be realized. Few of those who are of those who have heard of the great self, the Atman within. Many others who hear of it fail to comprehend it. Fortunate is that one who hears of it. Wonderful is the one who speaks of it. But extremely blessed is that one who, having heard of it from the lips of an illumined preceptor, is able to realize it here and now, in this very life. Om, peace, peace, peace. For the Atman is the doorway into Brahman. There shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. May that Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, and with the teachings. And may what we study be an inspiration to us for all times. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat. Here we have gathered on Sunday in the afternoon here in the Hawaiian Islands to take in more on the Atma Upanisad. This will be our third and I think final class on it. There's probably enough material to stretch it out, but we've gone through the main chart twice now, and I'm just putting up for reference to bring us back to the subject, that eternal subject, we call it, not the infernal object, as my teacher used to say. We want to put our attention on the eternal subject and take it off of the infernal objects all the time, which are giving us attachment and dissatisfaction and suffering and ignorance. The sevenfold road to ruination called by Sri Krishna in the Gita. So having watched today one of my students give a talk to the New Thought Church this morning on the seer and the seen and what the difference between them is very illuminating to see that, and to see people other than the group that I teach of SRV Sangha, which is spread around Hawaii and the West Coast, the East Coast, and Europe and India. It's good to see people here locally, as we say, that are hearing maybe for the first time about that Atman, and some have never heard of it. Probably consider those millions, even billions of people who are not attracted to anything of a divine nature or towards religion of a deeper kind, or of philosophy, which is leaning more towards non-duality, or even towards a savior figure, or what we call Ishtam or Ishvara in Vedanta. Many of those in the world just materialistic, and what Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to refer to even there in Calcutta in the 1800s, where he lived, as worldly people. So among the Hindus too, you had them. So they are born and they don't hear of the Atman. That analogy was used today in my student's speech about some have heard of milk but never tasted it. Some have held it and looked at it but never tasted it. And then others have tasted it. And so that would be another way of putting that Upanishadic sloka that comes from the mouths of the illumined souls and from the revealed scriptures, which we call Upanishads, Upanishadic wisdom. So to hear of it is a good thing. So we're looking at some people today in a mixed audience that hadn't heard of it, obviously, from their questions. And even when they did hear of it, they kept deferring back to things that were causing them to suffer. So it is true that suffering is a means to drive people towards the infinite. It's also true that if they get a glimpse of the infinite, whether it be through any self-effort on their own part or through the grace of God, that they quite often fall away from it quite quickly in disbelief, maybe, or unworthiness. They'll doubt themselves, or they'll doubt the vision. And so the worldly people around them, which doesn't help at all. All of that's a good definition for what we call Maya in Vedanta. And that appearance of name and form and time and space that causes cause and effect to come back all the time. And then you don't know where the effect came from and you suffer the effect and you can't neutralize the suffering. But those people who have heard of the Atman have come close to it, maybe even gained a taste of it. For them, then it's more like the Atman, the truth of the Atman, like in our threefold chart here, in our three-headed figure of Angiras, is looking at everything now as being hinged or colored by that Atman. And the coloration is thicker in terms of the Bahya Atman. Bahya or Bahir means outer. So the seer is giving us this concession that yes, everything out here too is Atman. When Upanishads say all is Brahman, they mean it. But of course, they mean it from the standpoint of the Atman, of those who have realized it. Obviously, those who haven't realized it cannot say that and cannot renounce the world because they're still working their way through it in different ways. Make a living, to raise a family, to attend upon churches, to maybe find a teacher that will teach them meditation. All of these things are done in Maya. That's in the realm of name and form. So when name and form has an opportunity to go away, say like it does for all of us in deep sleep tonight, and then all of a sudden the seer begins to develop inside of us and begins to make that shift that the seer is different from the seen. That's the name of the talk today. And so when that distinction is made between the oil and the water, because if I shake that oil and water mixture, it will mix. One's consciousness and the other's the world, or spirit and matter, if you want to call them that. If I shake them, they'll mix. But if I put it down for 45 seconds, then they'll separate again. So this is the eternal lesson that we give this teaching to the children, that consciousness and matter do not mix ultimately. That you have to realize spirit to be real and matter is not. That is, spirit is unchanging. Brahman is unchanging. Matter is not. It's a projection of the mind. And it'll constantly change. And that's why Christ said things like, you don't want to build your house on shifting sand. That's matter. And birds have nests, foxes have holes, but you don't have any place to lay your head here because you can't lay your head here because nothing's solid here. We think objects are solid, but science comes along and tells us differently, just a mass of swirling particles. So the question should be, what's making them solid when they're not? What's behind the appearance of things? And that will only happen to a person who has heard of the Atman and becomes closer to it. That's the Antar Atman. They're beginning to use their mental facility or faculties, and not just their senses, because we saw that those are really based here: ears, brows, forehead, and so forth. Over here, they become subtle senses that we see with our mind, we hear with our mind, we taste with our mind. The organs of the senses are recognized as being attached to the mind, because people could shove food down our throat tonight while we're sleeping, but we would not be tasting it with our tongue till we woke up. So the subtle senses are in operation in our dreams tonight. And in other words, externally, then consciousness has to be there temporarily, animating them. It's a good word, to animate. Consciousness animates the tattvas: tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, smelling, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, the 5 organs of action, mind, intellect, ego, and thought. Those are 24 tattvas that consciousness animates. You should be able to reel them off just like that because you studied them in the Samkhya philosophy, and you know you're not that. So we chanted last week. Remember, I was here. Om Mano Bujahamkara Chitani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jive Nacha Grana Netre. I'm not all of these things like mind and ego and thoughts and intellect. Mano Bujahamkara Chitani. That's thoughts, ego, mind, and intellect. So you would not know to say I'm not those if you hadn't looked at them to find out that you're not them. So you have to account for them. You can say, these are mine, but I'm not those. It means to say that. These belong to me, but I'm not them. Same with this body. I wrote an article for Prabhupada Bharata some years ago with the title of that. These 3 bodies are not me, but these 3 bodies belong to me, but I'm none of them. You see. So you take possession of these things and utilize them for a spiritual life. And that way, then you'll begin to realize that there's something underlying them as a foundation. And that would be this witness or param jyoti. So we've looked through these, we've given the concomitants for each one of these 3 Atmans. That is the one Atman in 3 forms: outer, inner, and beyond both. The beyond both looks at these and witnesses them. And so that was the theme of the talk today at New Thought Church. And it's basically is that we should always keep that witness in mind. Maybe you could train yourself, like if a dog is trained to sit up when he hears the words sit up, even though he doesn't know what the words sit up really mean, it's never come to attention. You should probably train your mind to sit up in attention whenever you use the word I, because which I are you talking about? It was the point today in the talk. So the outer eye is drug here and there from birth to death, and through its whole life. And people who have never heard of milk or have never heard of the Atman are under the auspice or influence of that eye alone and don't know about their inner eye, pun intended, this third eye, but also the mind and what it projects. They don't know that it projects everything and that everything that it does project is a projection. So these are 2 things that are very important in your analysis of the self. You have to come down and realize those, and that's where we ended up last week. I'll read it to you right here. With distinctions like teacher and disciple, nonetheless, Brahman alone appears. From the point of view of truth, only pure Brahman exists. Neither knowledge, nor ignorance, nor world, nor anything else is there except Brahman. And what discipline is required to know that? Accepts the adequacy of the means of right knowledge. So he's pointing out here that you need to be able to look at the pot. He uses here, Gautam is the word. You have to look at the pot and see it for what it is. And then you can find out that there's air inside of it, there's air outside it, it has a lid, what it's made of, clay. And other objects are also made of clay. The pot has a lot to teach you. So that's what the Upanishad here with Angra says. What discipline is required to know this is a pot? And the same discipline is required to know that this is the Atman. All of this is the Atman. All of this is Brahman. It's that very same means of knowledge that you will use to find yourself, only it needs to be turned inward, not placed only outwardly, like we do in materialism or with the senses only. It needs that inner turn, antaryami. Antaryami means the inner ruler inside of our heart, which is immortal and which oversees everything, the antaryami, or antaratman, the witness of all things. So that's where we ended up, and we went on reading that once this knowledge, right knowledge, is given to the student, the knowledge of the object then supervenes. The ever-present self shines through it, and the means of its cognition is immediately present to you. So we'd probably call that something like concentration. We can look at things around the room and, in a matter of seconds, count 10 or 12 things that we just saw. But we look at one and find out, and concentrate on that one thing, we find out all the different concomitants that are in it, all the different things it has to teach us. So that's what you need to do with objects, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, because they're usually just an amalgam. And when they're in an amalgam, that's an object. So you take the object apart into 5 elements, and you see what is the cognition by which I'm seeing these? Oh, tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, and smelling are the cognitive. Those are the dynamics of perception, as Swami Vivekananda called it nicely. But nobody practices the dynamics of perception. They just perceive, and they only perceive outwardly. So you're going to have to focus on the origin of a thing, we like to say, to find out where it came from, and what it consists of first, and then all those things that it consists of, where are their origins. They're in air, fire, earth, ether, and water, you see. And then where are those origins? Inside the tanmatras are called subtle elements. Like in your dream tonight, you're seeing air, earth, fire, water, and ether in thought form. So those are the tanmatras. So they're still operating there, but they've abandoned the physical form, right? From the gross elements to the subtle elements. Same with the senses. From the gross senses out here, and actually you have 10 of those, you have active senses like walking and speaking and locomotion, procreation, and things. Those are called 10 active senses, 5 active senses. And then you have 5 senses of knowledge, which are your seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, and smelling. And you don't want to just leave them as an amalgam, all put together without any distinction, without any discrimination. So you take them all back and take them apart. You have to do the same then inside your dream, inside your antaratman. Your antaratman has the ability to do that. Remember, that's what it said here. Oh, it starts to distinguish using the Nyaya philosophy or the Mamsa philosophy. There's a person who's heard of the Atman, and now that they're wanting to taste it. See, so they're going to have to do the distinguishing, that is the discrimination, that is the discernment, that is the renunciation, that is the separation of everything from the non-essence from the essence, and get it real clear. And once that's done, then, as Angiras tells us here, the ever-present self shines through the means of its cognition, and it's present. No place or time or purity is required for this. The knowledge I am that depends on nothing else but that perception. That's why even an impure person could all of a sudden have a deep insight from God, or have grace all of a sudden descend upon them, because that everything else has been put away in that one mode. That one modus operandi of perception has become focused. See, it's like looking through a magnifying glass or a telescope, or a camera lens, and focusing it. So you want to hit that one place where everything's perfectly focused, and then don't touch the dials anymore, and get the best view. So that has to be an inner dial that you're turning, this discernment. You have to know yourself, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And so that's why we want to look at the dynamics of perception today, which is going to be told for the next set of slokas. That knowledge, I am that, depends on nothing else but this focused perception. Similarly, the knowledge of I am Brahman, of the knower of Brahman, is independent. So that's its ability to stand back and perceive itself as being that, with that focus. Just as the whole world is illumined by the sun, by the splendor of knowledge of Brahman, everything that is Brahman gets revealed, becomes illumined. So it's just as simple as the sun illuminating everything. The knowledge of Brahman should do the same inwardly. And then it can come out and show itself in the sun, in the moon, in the stars, in nature, in human beings, in animals, in insects, in grasses and trees and wind and everything. That same Brahman can come out and be seen. And what can illumine the non-existent, the illusory, the non-self? That which endows the Vedas, Shastras, and Puranas and all other beings with import. That knower, what will illumine it? So if you find that knower through the scriptures like the Vedas, we're talking about Vedas right now. This is an Upanishad has come from a Veda, right? So if you heard that, then you've come close to you can't claim anymore. I've never heard of the Atman. Now I say I've heard of it, but I haven't quite comprehended it yet. I'm on that track, and they're giving me this ability now to discern it with this permission to focus. Let's see, or you might call it a scolding if I don't. Let's see, get your head together. Focus your mind. Purify your senses. Make your speech true. Everything has to become focused and purified. And then they give you the permission to see Brahman and everything. Not before, because people have tried to see it before and made a big mess out of it. It's like, oh, Mary, hail, I tell you, pray, you mar my doctrines, balking, wronging, balking. I never taught such queer thought as all is God, unseeming talking. But this I say, remember, pray, that God is all else is nothing. The real me is none but he, and never, never matter changing. How would you like to get a letter like that from a soul like Swami Vivekananda in your mailbox in England in the 1800s? So he's talking about the distinction. People hear that everything's Brahman. Oh, I got it. That's the truth. I finally see it. And they're very elated and very happy. And well, they should be, until they find out that it doesn't last when suffering comes. It doesn't last when the gunas come forward again. It doesn't last when karma begins to fructify. It doesn't last when suffering rears its ugly head, not only in you, but in your family or in the society or in the politics or in the world, the physical world. So how am I going to hold my vision of perfection then? It's going to have to go much deeper than that. So Angiras is taking us in that direction. He says that the Vedas, the scriptures, revealed scriptures will tell us how to attain that focus. And we'll find out that which we're focusing on is the ultimate reality, and that nothing can illuminate it. It is the source of all illumination. Like nothing, it's Svayam Jyoti, they say. So Swayam Bhuva and Swayam Jyoti and other Swayams in the tradition are all from the house of the sun. Basically, they're all from the lineage of the sun. They come from Surya out. And so that Surya is not just an object in the sky. There are millions of those, but it's the sun of wisdom that's shining on people all the time, particularly on special families of rishis that focused on it. They focused on it. They might have started with the sun, like some religions do before they become religions, but they had to go to the depths, the full extent, to find out that it wasn't a physical light, even as powerful as the sun's light is. That was the light that was radiating, that was self-luminous. The sun acted like it because it had its own power, watched over as many ages with a few scientific instruments, you'll find out that there's some black holes out there where our sun used to be, they're saying. So basically, even the sun isn't eternal. So in this case, then you're going to have to look for that light of lights. Na tattva suryavati na chandra tarakam, name of Vidyutobanti kutuyam agnihi. There's that word again, agnihi, fire. You look at the source of fire, and that will take you to the sun of wisdom. And so this is what he's talking about in slokas 7 and 8. I'll read it again. What can illumine the non-existent, the illusory, the non-self? Like this body is the non-self, but why is it filled with so many powerful things? The power to see, the power to taste and hear and touch, the power to feel, power to speak. Even there in the body, we find that this Atman is shining forth its powers, particularly in along channels that have been purified and dedicated. So even the non-self is getting illumined by that. And it also illumines the words of the Vedas. Otherwise, one person could sit and listen to the words of the Vedas and feel nothing whatsoever, understand nothing greater than what happened before he heard the words of the Vedas. Another person can hear the words of the Vedas and go into samadhi. See? Like hearing the truth for the first time in a lifetime once you've realized it in a previous lifetime. So the power that's in those words is obviously not just in the scriptures and in the words, it's in the knower. And then also the knowledge that it is self-luminous is in the knower. By the splendor of the knowledge of Brahman is everything illumined, he says. And so that takes us up through 4 or 5 more slokas that we proceeded further from last week's slokas. And we want to look then at this chart. Now that we've revisited that briefly a third time, because we're still going to get to some of the explication of this Paramatman, Shantatman they call it. That pretty much takes up the last third of the Upanishad. So we'll read that and I'll show you another chart about the Atman specifically. But we want to focus right now on that ability and that mechanism by which we can hone our these dynamics of perception, which are in us, and that we've been given permission to use, and which we now have to apply that permission and keep steady. So basically in India, that's been called the 3 great proofs of truth, also the 3 powerful practices, and that's this chart here that you're seeing. Basically, it's Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana is one of those things, one of those triputis. And it's also sometimes called Shruti, Shruti to hear, Yukti to reason about what you hear, and then Anubhav. Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhav means to have the realization of what you realize, what you meditated upon after you heard it. See, those are 3 great steps in the dynamics of perception to make sure that you take full advantage of meditating on the greatest of objects with a capital O, yourself. So can hardly call the self an object, but you might as well in this way. This is how you're going to come upon the knowledge of the knower, all existing inside yourself. So Shruti Yukti Anubhava is one way of putting it. Here we're calling it Shravana. That's also the same root in Sanskrit, to hear. And Manana, roll my mind over and over, roll it over and over in my mind, or put my mind on it, either way or both. And then Nididhyasana, to realize the effects that come out of that process. So again, I have to backtrack and say people can come to Shravana and hear it and walk away. People can Shruti, hear the scriptures, like in a church or in a temple, or from a relative who's a preacher or something, and then never inquire into what it really means, never realize it, therefore. So hearing it, inquiring into it, and realizing it is what we're talking about. That takes time. You have to put effort and time into that. And that's what people don't do, just plain and simple. You have to crack a book just like you do in school. And this time the book is going to be the Adhyatma Ramayana, or this time it's going to be the Bhagavad Gita, or in this day and age, it could be the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And that would be plenty of manana to be doing every day. Well, I'm 55 years into my sadhana in this lifetime, and probably still reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna every day. Read pages and pages of it. And so that's why you have to keep up this Shravan, this manana, after hearing it. Hearing it, reflect it, hear it, reflect it, hear it, reflect it. There's no doubt that it'll eventually have to, just like food taken in, it has to become a part of your being. Food becomes a part of your nutrients of your bloodstream, and it gives you health of the organs and so forth. Same with continually imbibing this wisdom from Upanishads. We call Upanishad Mahasram, the great Upanishads, or something like a Gita or the Gospel, again and again, imbibing it all the time, putting out of your mind the fact that I'm not understanding this yet, because that'll occur. That's called doubt. And that will go away some days. And then finally, as days proceed, it'll go away more and more until finally, yes, I know that. It's not just, oh, I heard that, and I haven't realized it yet, but I've heard it and I know it now. And then from that knowledge of Brahman, he says, the realization will dawn at the precise moment in which it's needed. So what are the inner dynamics of hearing then? There you see a nice picture of the ear. It's amazing when you cut an ear off the head like that and just put it by itself, how much it looks like a shell, right? You never noticed that? Look at an ear close up, just very much like a seashell. So this is like two seashells on the other side of our head here are our two ears. They're hearing good things, and if you listened with them, you'd hear the ocean inside or the wind, they say. It's like putting a conch shell up to your ear. So that's the oracle of hearing. And then down here you could see basically to hear it first, then to see it, and then to be it. It's here CB, I used to call that. And so those are the three proofs of truth. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that it's not quite enough to hear about you. I want to see you. You see? And then when you see a great being, you want to be just like them, right? You take them as your exemplar. So that's how these three steps take you closer and closer to the truth of I am. The self is Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. So there you see the bullet points. 6 of them is it. Shravana, to hear the truth first. And, this is a matter of difficulty because in this day and age, unlike India in the old times, you didn't have a guru right down the street that you could go to. Every family had a family guru. They would even send their children there sometimes for days at a time. Oh, you don't need to come home tonight. Whose parents in the West would have ever told you that when you were a teenager? Oh, well, Mom, Dad, I'm not coming home tonight. There's somebody up the street who's wise. I'm going to stay overnight with them. No way you're going to do that, son, daughter. So in India, they did this on purpose, gave their children away to the illumined preceptors so that they would get this input. That's how they got around the problem of no time because I'm going to school. See, you go home after school, don't you? Well, go to the home of the preceptor after school. And there you'll make best use of your time. So there's no excuse for not hearing the truth. Shravana, Shruti. That's what has to be heard. All the things you're learning in school don't absolutely have to be heard. And in fact, if you looked into your mind with manana, which we're getting to, you'll probably find out that I already know all the things they're teaching me in school. School is just a matter of causing you to remember what you learned in another lifetime. You can quote me on that. School is just a tool to cause people to remember what they learned in the past lifetime. That's its facility. So all knowledge lies within you is how Father of Yoga would put that. So that's jumping a few steps inward, which I'm always good at doing. I have lots of bites, lots of Brahman bites in me. So I had to bring that up because you must hear this. I put this first. You must hear this from the lips of an illumined preceptor. If you hear it at a religious temple or a church, or hear it from hearsay from a friend or from your parents who haven't done the manana themselves yet, you're getting a very dimmed down version of the truth that you would have heard straight from Jesus's mouth. See, if you're a Christian, for instance, or from Krishna's Gita, if you're a Hindu. So you have to go to that living intelligence that is shining by its own light, has already done the process of Shruti Yukti and Anubhava, or Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and hear them say that like he told us. So there are 3 of us here, or 5 of us in the room right now. 3 of us here went to him, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. Peace and blessings be upon him always, at the Vedanta Society of Portland when we were living there. And we went to him multiple times throughout the years, and he informed us of this truth. And we were sitting in full attention at every talk he gave. And we lived it. I think we should be giving T-shirts. I lived through years of Swami Sheshananda's scoldings and lectures. And because he was trying to put us right. And so we heard the truth, the way it should be told, from the original scriptures of India, from a direct disciple of Sri Sharda Devi, who was the wife of the avatar Sri Ramakrishna. That put everything else behind us, you see. We could have gone anywhere and done anything from that point and still be able to say that. I heard the truth from an illumined preceptor once in my life and early on. See, I didn't go anywhere else except to him. I went straight to him. Well, I mean, I went to Lexington too. He was 10 years my senior, but he had gone to Swami Nikhilananda in New York and got that same transmission and then told me about it. So anyway, that's a point I want to say, is that it might not be so practical that all of us are going to get to find our way to the feet of an illumined preceptor right away. You should make sure it happens sometime in your life. Don't take any wooden nickels, as they say. Make sure that you hear the truth from the source. Drink from the mountain stream, as Milarepa says in his beautiful songs. Drink straight from the mountain stream. Go straight there. Don't drink along the way. Sri Ramakrishna used to say the chatak bird, he won't drink any water. He'll just almost die of thirst. He won't drink from mountain streams. He won't drink from lakes. He won't drink from mud puddles, rivulets, anything. He'll only drink after it rains when the star Swati is in the ascendant in the sky. If he sees the star Swati is there in the ascendant, that's the right cycle, the right time. It rains then, he'll go drink that water. He won't take any other water. That's what the discriminating disciple will do when they're looking for the truth. I must hear it from the lips of an illumined preceptor. So that's why I chanted that. Shravanayapi buhubir yo nalabhyaha shrinvatopi bahavo yam navidyahu ascharyo vakta kushulo nushishtaha ascharyo vakta, to hear it. Ascharyo gyata, that wisdom. Kushulo shalabdaha. Kushulo nushishtaha. So I must have heard that from the lips of an illumined preceptor, and then I'm blessed. Before I was just hearing somebody wonderful talk. For that, I didn't ever hear about it, you see. So I had to come through a Triputi, 3 steps there. So when I get to the 3rd step of that Triputi, I have 3 more steps I find I have to do. And this is what I haven't seen happening in Vedanta in the West. They've got a great soul in Sri Ramakrishna. They've got a great path that Vivekananda brought them in Vedanta. They need to do this now and become self-realized in their own right. Because that's what the avatar wants you to do. Is that enough commentary on just one point? So second point is hear with intelligence intact and heart open. So yeah, I'm expecting a lot of people. See, when it comes to these three specific steps, you've got to have an illumined perceptor having told you that's true, so you don't have any doubt about it. Number two, you had to have your intelligence intact, and you had to have your heart open when you went there, like we did with Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. We wouldn't have been able to get through the door otherwise of that ashram. As he could spot those people who weren't sincere, just like Sri Ramakrishna could. Sri Ramakrishna was gracious to everyone who came to him. There's only one thing he couldn't brook: an insincere person. If they were there for any other reason than just to realize God and hear the truth from him, then he was theirs, no matter how much of a sinner they were. How many errors they had, how much problems they had, and so forth, or how little intelligence or how little capacity they had. But if they were insincere, it's a waste of the time of both the guru and the disciple. Third point, hear it to know it both in its outer form and its inner form. Well, we found out that there's an Atman in its outer form, right? Bahya Atman, and there's an Antar Atman in its inner form. So that's been able to go a long way towards explaining the fullness of the Atman, Purnamadaha Atman. See. But now we find out that now that we know the outer and inner meaning, then that's going to be a criterion. Those are prerequisites for being able to hear it, to be able to pass into the manana phase of extracting essence from what we experience. I have a good chart for that. We gave a seminar called that. See, extracting essence from everyday experience. It attracts people, those kinds of senses. But when they come and find out what they have to do, that attraction begins to dwindle. And you don't hear them writing back to you or coming to you anymore. See, once my Swami Sheshananda be such a light, you see, he said, they kept talking to him, please teach the Katha Upanishad, please teach the Katha Upanishad. This was his own students there at the center. So one day he got tired of hearing, so okay, I'll start classes on Tuesday nights of the Katha Upanishad for all of you. But listen to me right now when I tell you, you'll all be at the first class. Some of you will be at the second class. By the second week, I won't have anyone in class. He just pretty much rained on everyone's parade. And that was what happened. Even when they heard that that was going to happen, so they could prevent it, they didn't. So there's a real disconnect in us in the West as far as hearing real paravidya, vijnana from the source, and then getting attracted to it and making it our own and wanting to get free with it. Too much trouble, too much work. I can't do it. I doubt it. There's just a whole host of things that are echoing in our samskaric influenced brains, see, that drive us away from the point of human existence, to get free, to be free, like the Atman is. You say we get free, it sounds like you've got to take a method and you've got to make progress, and those things are actually based on change. So I think I'm already that. I'd rather take on the attitude that I'm already that. Okay, good. Take on that attitude and then practice. You see, don't take on that attitude and pretend and not practice. You have to prove it to yourself. The self is standing inside of you in the form of two other forms of Atman, your mind and your Atman itself, telling you, prove it to me, prove it to me. And if you can't prove it to them, to the Atman, that you are that you are one with it, then that's where the Bahya Atman will start stepping in. The ego starts stepping in. Say, well, maybe you're me then, you see. See, you can't prove it to your real self that you're that. So prove it to me, I'll accept it. And so people start believing that they're an individual self instead of an indivisible self. And then the Atman goes to the back and the ego dances in front, doing all its mischievous things, Sri Ramakrishna said. So make sure that you hear not just outwardly what the teacher told you, But inwardly, you can see how that begins to take you towards manana. Now you can not just hear the teacher and go away and wait till next Sunday to hear him again. Repeat. You see. Two parents had a son named Pete, and they had a second son. What did they name him? Repeat, as the joke goes. So you're doing that as far as hearing the truth every Sunday with the teacher. And so people do that. Just Sunday after Sunday goes by at these centers, and they hear the same thing. And they come back for more and hear it again. But who's going to act on it and realize it is the point? And transform themselves with those great utterances from the Upanishads. I mean, you're obviously not getting anything that grand from other scriptures, from conventional religion, or long time ago, it would have inspired you to look deeper. But now you hear it and you're still not going to respond to it, then there's a disconnect there. I think something's going to have to be rewired. And that's what this rewiring is about here, is you have to hear it for the purposes of enlightenment. If you go there, this is going to make me popular amongst my brothers and sisters. They'll look at me and say, oh, what a spiritual person that is, you see. Well, that's a spiritual ego getting into it. Or you could go there and say, this is going to get rid of my suffering. So who can bargain with God about their suffering? God, please take away my suffering. But you did those acts. You're telling me to take away the effects of your suffering when you did the acts? I'm supposed to take this on? Well, okay, 500 more years. In your fifth lifetime from now, I'll come take away your suffering. See, just wait for me. And so that's how long you have to wait for a person who will absorb the karma from you, like Sri Ramakrishna did. When I realized, Girish Ghosh said, when I realized what a huge pit of transformative power that Sri Ramakrishna was, to take on all of the various sufferings that people heaped into that pit, then if I had known that, I would have committed many more evil deeds, he said tongue-in-cheek. See, so basically that's what Sri Ramakrishna was in this day and age. He will still to this very day, a couple hundred years later, and probably for another 100 years, because he said for 250 to 300 years, he will be here in his subtle form, helping us neutralize our karmas. So that's a promise from a solid source that we can rely on. So basically, my point is hear this truth from the teacher for the purpose of gaining enlightenment. Because if you get enlightened, 7 generations of your family before you and in front of you will get enlightened too. They'll have that possibility of getting enlightened. That's what a family lineage connected to the sun god is, for instance. Then you have bright, shiny offspring being born to these people who will say, oh, what did my father say? Write that down. He said that 50, 75 years ago. I'll write it down. Oh, it's an Upanishad. Here, I'll pass it on, you see. So all of a sudden, these great souls are giving you these great teachings from on high, from ancient times. And that's for the purposes of you getting enlightenment right away when you read it in that very lifetime. May we get free in this very lifetime. If you're that kind of person that's taking this teaching in fully, then this 6th bullet point is very good. I'm sorry, 5th bullet point. Hear it with a view to inform others about it. I think this is the great faith that Holy Mother put in us as her children, even her white-faced children, as she said in Bengali once. I have many children amongst the Caucasians, she said, when she was living in India. So if we're that, grandchildren even of hers, then we have to listen to what she said. I think it's a great faith she put in when she said, now that you've found Sri Ramakrishna on your way to him, would you just turn and help others? See, she wouldn't have said that if she didn't think that it was possible for us to do that. So we must take that seriously and And as we go towards the truth and expand ourselves, wider capacity, greater flow, better health on all levels of our being, then we should cast a few glances sidelong, and see suffering people and saying, "What's the matter with you? Come up." This is what Swami Vivekananda did for us. Just shone the light on everyone and uplifted their spirits. Even before he was well known, even in America, before his lecture tour, people later wrote on and said, "Oh, my grandmother saw Vivekananda, and he lit up the house when he stayed with her." Gave a room to this itinerant Indian monk walking around, new to the West. Nobody knew him. How would you know you could even trust him? They didn't even know what a Swami is at that time. But he lit up her whole family just by living 3 days in their household, you see. Well, that's the kind of soul we want to run into. Hopefully purposefully rather than by accident. But we'll take either one, right? So the final bullet point to Shravana or Shruti is hear it to destroy ignorance for all time. So you're shutting the door on ignorance and suffering and negative karmas and so forth from now on. You make a definitive move and a decision that those things aren't going to invade the inner chamber of your house anymore. Inner chamber, probably called the Antaratman, and then the Absolute Atman is the doorway to that. So those things cannot pass anymore. My mind will remain free and clear of them. Let's look at Amanana. To contemplate the truth. So again, the past 6 bullet points, remember all of them. Try and remember them, all 6 of them, while you hear this. Or look back and roll your eyes over them as you have the chart in front of you now. And remember, we're talking about those are the prerequisites, because it's very important now that we affirm that we heard the truth, right? There can't be a shred of doubt in there that I went to Swami Shishanandaji and he said anything false. See, and it says, was it Josephine McLeod, was it, who saw Swami Vivekananda talk at the Sesame Club or somewhere in England for the first time, and wherever it was. And then she said, afterwards, she said, he spoke truth and he spoke nothing but the truth. Then I went to see him again. He spoke nothing but the truth. And I've listened to him for years now, and I've heard nothing but the truth from him. So that's what we want to come upon when we find this, you see. We have to make sure that there's no vestige of doubt anymore that what the Upanishads is telling us, what the revealed scriptures are telling us, is absolutely true. Then we can further verify it with our manana. And when we do manana, the ego is still in there, you see, testing everything. So what's going to give our ego a cleansing or inflating, deflating from its inflated state is by subjecting all of this truth that you heard to the testimony of the seers. So sure, I read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and I went to a direct disciple of Holy Mother. So that was great. Those were pluses in my favor. But didn't keep me from reading the Upanishads or sharing them with others. It didn't keep me from reading the entire Bhagavad Gita many times, or looking into the non-dual scriptures called Astavakra Samhita, Avadhuta Gita, Adhyatma Ramayana. I didn't stop there because I just had Sri Ramakrishna's Gospel and a good teacher. I wanted to hear how everyone else said what Swami Shishananda said to me. See, everyone who is an accepted oracle, an authentic testament from these great souls, lauded and confirmed by all the other luminaries of India, what they had to say about what Swami Shishananda had told me. And I found it corroborated the whole time. They collaborated and they corroborated, I like to say. So after you continue doing that, you're in the realm of manana. Now measure it against the scripture, what the scriptures declare. Measure that truth that you've heard against what the scriptures declare. So you've got then the seers and the scriptures, right? You've got two of the 3 or 4 great things that you should have in order to start into spiritual life. It would be a great addition if you could discuss it daily with the spiritual perceptive. So that's what people like to say, is that dead gurus don't kick ass, I think is how they put that. And so maybe they've done a little kicking and started you on the Shravana. Oh, I heard what that great soul who passed many centuries or millennia ago said, and that kicked me forward, you see. But now I have to hear it and discuss it with somebody who's a teacher. So that's why I say I found Lex Hickson early on. He'd gotten that teaching from Swami Nikhilananda. So we would spend hours talking about those things on nature walks and at different places when he stayed at my home and so forth. That was a subject was always on our mind. And we wouldn't even see each other with, wouldn't be like, oh, how are you doing today or something. That wasn't even on our minds. If you've heard this and you're doing fine all the time, you're not crowded out, imbalanced or emotionally upset or all these things that people go through. That's just not there because you found the truth. That was way back here, by the way, when you heard it. And so now you can speak about it with your teacher and with spiritual compatriots. So you discuss it daily in that way. Now here's where the other yogas enter in. It's basically you were, say, oriented towards jnana. Maybe, say, you were born in Christianity, so you got a lot of ritual in church and so forth, and that was good. You liked Mass and so forth and so on, and so then that probably paved the way for you wanting to know Jesus in a deeper way, or wanting to know what was in the Bible that was of a wisdom nature, rather than just of a bhakti, what we call bhakti or devotional nature. And so when you found that, then you decided,
shit, you motherfucker, I hate you.
Then when you found that, then you found out that worship and meditation was a way of culling that beautiful wisdom that you got. And so that's puja in our way of saying, and basically that's active worship. But then it has to be put side by side by inactive meditation. So this is where you're adding to that jnanam, that first yoga, the bhakti element and the raja or dhyan element. So then you have 3 yogas going for you. You have this beautiful knowledge which you're seeking, and then you have the heart opening. Remember, didn't we just say that? You have to come to it with the intellect refined and the heart opened. And so that way, then all of a sudden, this worship is going on. That's opening your heart. And this meditation then begins to happen. And you can begin to open a nadi, as we say, or an inner channel towards the light of God, the light of Brahman. And the only yoga that's not obviously in operation amongst that is work. See, and so pretty soon that work will become worship, as Vivekananda said. Labor must turn into love. So your labor will be turned into love through that worship, and work must become worship. Those are some of the nice ways in which he used alliteration and other nice techniques to come up with these beautiful sayings that inspired us on to blend these 4 yogas, refine it with ongoing worship and meditation. Another good thing about Manana, if one goes deep enough, is that one will find out that this wisdom belongs to the Divine Mother of the universe. And they'll begin to see that these are her words that are coming forth in your mind. It's like Shyamakrishna used to say, they'd ask him how such wisdom coming out of your mouth all the time. You could expand on things for days at a time. Where does that come from? He said, I don't know. I just know that Mother is inside of me speaking it. I open my mouth and she speaks. So he had made that deep connection with her through knowledge, worship, and love, right? And then those had matured in him, and now all he had to do was sit and open his mouth, as it were, and she would pour out wisdom. They asked him further, well, can't you give us some of the dynamics of that? And he said, well, I saw the rice merchants when I was growing up in the villages, and they'd pile their rice on a wagon, and then they'd have the oxen pull the wagon to Calcutta to the marketplace. And so back at the marketplace, then the wife is sitting in front of a pile of rice, and she's like bagging it and handing it to customers with one hand, nursing the baby with another, and taking the money, the rupees, you know. And so pretty soon that goes on all morning, and the rice starts to go away. She doesn't have anything to sell anymore. About the time when the pile's gone, this wagon from the countryside, from the farm where she lives, her husband shows up with this filled wagon load of rice grain and pours it right there, and the pile is huge again. That's how he finally described to us how Mother was always piling wisdom inside of him without his knowledge necessarily, and that's how he could always just bag this rice of wisdom and give it to us anytime we wanted, all day, all year, all his life. So that's what maybe perceive it as the internal voice of the Vakdevi means. The Vakdevi is the goddess of the word. She's equipped every word with that inner power to convince us, to penetrate through ignorance. Even lower wisdom does that, right? If you think back to your grade school days when you first understood addition or any other subject, mathematics and so forth, all of a sudden you got it. That was the power in the word coming through to waken you up. And that gave you knowledge. And from then on, you were free of that particular kind of or level of ignorance that was in you. She's doing that all the time. And as spiritual life kicks in, she's continuing to do that with us. And that's pretty much here what hear it to know both its outer and inner meaning infers. Because the outer meaning will all of a sudden show you the inner meaning. And that's a great marvel. We're calling that things like insights and realizations and so forth. Enough of those pile up, then they're going to, it's going to be the old straw that broke the camel's back. The camel here being ignorance, the straw being just enough of that wisdom to break through your ignorance and give you a glimpse of your true nature. Back here, if you haven't even heard of your true nature yet, or if you've just only heard of it, then it's not going to break the camel's back, is it? You would have had to have gone full distance in order to have that great realization come upon you. Well, that, as we explore these slokas, and this is pretty much has to do with everything, second part of the Upanishad, Atma Upanisad, to 2.8, that is section 2, sloka 8, they're talking about this kind of perception and what illumines the object. The object here is going to be the eternal subject. How can I find my true self? Shine light on that. This is how they've done it from time out of mind in India, how great souls have gotten free of ignorance and realized their true nature. So we look back on it and we find out all of these beautiful internal moves they made to have those realizations dawn upon them. Till finally they did realize the truth. A marvelous thing there, and that's called nidijasana. The first bullet point says, refine consciousness and raise it to higher centers of awareness. You could probably ask the question here, isn't that what I've been doing for these 12 bullet points or whatever they are, 10 bullet points? Yes, it is what you've been doing. Now affirm it. Is that like I said here, when I gave you the first point, make sure to look back to all 6 of these to make sure there's no shred of doubt here in those 6 that you practice. And the same here, when the truth begins to dawn upon you, make sure you look back to these and always say to yourself, I heard that from the seers. I heard that from my guru. I heard that from the scriptures. I heard that after I worshiped. I heard that in my meditation. See, and affirm that this has been the case, that has dawned upon you to such a level that now it's a part of your own realization. Nidijasana Ananda, you could call yourself then. The bliss of having that realized truth as your own. Second bullet point, confirm all results with ongoing spiritual practice. So sadhana are us. We say, Toys R Us was that store they came up with some decades ago. But when we looked at that, we said, well, in our case, even though we're getting higher truths given to us and we're beginning to even realize them to any great extent or lesser extent, we're going to have to say sadhana continues on in that. It just continues to refine things that we're working on. That is, if we find out that we get higher realization, but we're still suffering some karmas from past lifetimes, those haven't been completely neutralized then that's all the more reason for us to move forward in our spiritual life. So that in this lifetime, we get free from those things. And the next lifetime, if we're to lead one or live one, that we won't be laboring under the same problems that we have been in this lifetime. See, you look back and get a list, paper and pen, and write down, see, what things have I really been up against this lifetime? Non-ordinary things, not just the things everyone suffers: thirst, hunger, poverty, lack, things that pretty much are going on in everyone's life. Even the rich have their list of things that are going on that are rather ordinary. But those non-ordinary things that have kept me from the subject, from knowing the eternal subject and always focusing back on the infernal objects again. What are those things that I need to attenuate here? And after I attenuate them, dissolve them completely. So that, among other great reasons, is why you keep up an ongoing spiritual practice. Shankar was asked once, you fully realized soul in his 20s, and his students asked him, some of them were graybeards, ask him, why do you continue to do spiritual practice? He said, well, to keep my mind wiped clean, the mirror of my mind wiped clean, because I love Brahman so much, I love God so much that I don't want to have the mind, the intellect, and ego, collect any dust that might mar the vision of my beloved. You see, very, very devotional Gyani there, or Vijnani. So he said that, and then what else? To be an example to you, he said to Hassan Malaka, to be an example to you that you should keep doing sadhana just like I'm doing it to keep you at the path. You should do it to keep them at the path. And them means wives, children, husbands, friends. Keep them going on the path. So those were 2 very good reasons that fit into this particular point here. Confirm all results with ongoing spiritual practice. So that makes 3. So there is where you might say it's not such a, I do this step and then I come to this step and all of this goes away. Then I do this step and I come to this step and all these go away. They overlap all the time. That's always the way it is. Because that confirmation of the truths that are dawning upon you is being made possible by your being able to go back and do your manana on them, right? I mean, where would they go elsewise? They'd come up to you and you wouldn't prove them, right? Well, that must be true because it's happening to me. But no, you can think about it now. You have an open avenue towards manana, and it's connecting you to the real depths of nidijasana. And you can really then completely digest all the wisdom that comes in. Remember the pigeon, feed it corn and peas, sticks in its craw, right? Pick it up off the ground, feel it. Oh, it didn't digest those. That's how Sri Ramakrishna felt about giving out these truths to people who weren't doing this yet. They just came to hear him because they loved to see him. They liked the sound of truth. That's all good. That's a very good indication that they have good samskars in them. They're there, they're listening. But he wanted you to get to this level, digest it after he gives it to you, past your craw, past the craw of your doubting ego, past the craw of your dual mind, past the craw of your unrefined intellect, you see, and past the craw of your brooding thoughts, so that pretty soon it just goes all the way down into the stomach of your proper digestive process, and you can benefit by the nourishment that it gives. So that's how this other third point, I must do it to keep my mind pure. I must do it to help others as an example. And I must do it to test everything that's coming to me in my spiritual life and practice. It's got to have a barometer to measure it with. And then transform life in the world and the body in the light of this truth. Now here's where you're given permission to go ahead and transform poison into nectar. We were talking about that in our drive here today to class, how to transform poison into nectar. Talking about those sayings, one man's trash is another man's treasure, that came up in our conversation. And so immediately I thought of one man's poison is another man's nectar, or what Krishna says in the Gita, what's day to the all-cognizing muni is nighttime to the realized soul, and what's nighttime to the realized soul is daytime to the all-cognizing muni. Or what's sweet in the beginning turns sour later, but what's sour in the beginning turns sweet later is another way in which he said that. So you people out there in the junkyard, oh, I'm going to have this. I like this, you see, that's their treasure. So in that way, we think about transforming the poison that was in our mind into nectar of non-dual truth. So that means if I had a poison, say like, I hate humanity, or if I had a poison like nature is insentient and it's decaying all the time, and I had problems with my mind in that way, then you can transform those things with the absolute truth and knowledge that all of that is Brahman. All beings have the Atman in them. Atman exists in all things, all beings, equal in quantity and quality, but not yet in perception. Those beings who do the work, then they realize that it's not only equal in quality and quantity, but they realize that in some beings, there's more of the Atman manifest than in others. So all men are not created equal. We can put that one behind us now. As far as equal justice to all, equal opportunities to all, yeah, about the world, about the empirical process, we'll give it to you. But when it comes to the equal amount of realization of their true nature, they're not equal at all. There are some who are extremely wanting in this, and that's why they're suffering. And so we move to remove their suffering by helping them understand more of their Atman. That's called real compassion. In fact, it's called love. It's higher than compassion. Nididhyasana is very deep. You'll see it by the next three. Basically, then you have to be open to the non-dual truth and be willing to experience stages of successive samadhi. Okay, bring it on, right? I'm ready for that. And Divine Mother says, I don't know if you're really ready for that. I'll give you this drop. Let's see. That's like Sri Ramakrishna said, a son of rich parents. He hasn't quite reached age where he can get his money, his inheritance yet. So they're keeping it from him. So he complains bitterly, I want my inheritance. I want my inheritance. And he's not till your 16th birthday or your 18th birthday. They know that he's going to be a spendthrift and squander it or whatever. So they keep it from him, but he goes on bitching and complaining, see. So finally the parents talk with each other. Well, we could give him a little bit of it. And so they give him just a little bit, and he becomes happy with that little toy, with the red toy of a little money, you see. And then he quits complaining. So in that way, Divine Mother, if you endear yourself to her and ask her, can you give me some of my divine inheritance, please? And she might wait a few days and nothing happens. Oh, she said no. It's like people's answering prayers. No, that doesn't happen. Not till you get close to the prayer tree. But eventually, maybe then some beautiful light shines through and something great happens. And my ignorance, I woke up one day and my ignorance was gone, utterly gone. Well, I didn't get a lot of riches. I didn't get fame. I didn't get so many things that people are after. But my God, I feel like I'm free of ignorance now. What happened? What never existed went away. See? What never existed went away. But what wasn't existing was what was plaguing me was my thought that it did exist. So the unreal never is. The real never ceases to be. The truth about both has been realized, Nididhyasana style, by the seers. So those things that plague us so much, they don't have any real substance. Does darkness have any real substance? No, it goes away as soon as the torch is brought forward. It doesn't have any substance, so you're keeping it there inside of yourself. So those kinds of great teachings are given to us by the seers, like by our great Paramahamsa Dev, Sri Ramakrishna. And so, yes, if you're a practitioner of decades, go ahead and ask Mother for some deeper experience. Based upon what my teacher told me, and his teacher told him, and the Paramaguru told them, then I've studied these and I'm equipped now. I'm qualified. I'm waiting. I'm standing here waiting for the descent of your wisdom upon me. And give me even a lower samadhi. I think that's about the time when people will have real pleasure come from their objects. Have you had that experience yet, where something just gave you nominal pleasure and all of a sudden it just gives you this exquisite pleasure? It's not the object itself that's changed, it was your mind that changed. All of a sudden, this pleasure that you were getting out of this morsel of food or this object that you purchased or whatever it might be, this thought that you had, all of a sudden starts shining its light on you. And that's an exquisite pleasure of the samadhi of objects. Savitarka samadhi is called. And so that's transformable, you see. You can take that and then transform it onto nirvitarka samadhi. Where did the object come from? Or better yet, where is the bliss that increased in the object? Where is that source? See? So you think back on what made that object shine, and you know that it all has to move inside in stages. And so, because you've done the practice inside and you've created the stairway, the staircase up, you can then go back to that and find, lying on one of those steps, the source of the bliss of that object that you loved. See, it works the same with your guru, with your avatar. Where did they come from? Where do they shine? I must find myself to that place. I must be Sayujya. I must be in the same location of them. Salokya. The thing with them is they're both Salokya and Sarupya. I mean, Salokya and Sayujya, that is. They exist here and there also, in full. So it shouldn't be that hard to find them then, should it? Okay, penultimate, meditate on non-dual reality until karmas, gunas, and forms disappear completely. And I think I already just explained that. That's what's happening when objects get subtler and subtler back inside of you. Pretty soon, the bliss, the happiness you're getting from an object turns into the joy of possessing, and that turns into the joy of knowing why it's giving you bliss, and that turns into the disappearance of the object, and you're free from lower forms of happiness. Because from happiness, suffering will also come. So you're free from the pairs of dualities and their cycles. That's why the singer sang, "One day I woke up and my ignorance was gone, utterly gone." He goes on to say, because who can veil the truth? Nobody can keep a blazing fire tied in a cotton cloth. So that's the power of this process, that it's burning through everything that was coming to you in the form of any kind of covering, modification, of sublation, superimposition, any layer that was there finally burned away and gave you this sense of freedom. It was like lifting weights and putting them down. Putting them down feels so good now, you see. That weight of ignorance gone, then bliss can increase exponentially. Finally, it says, realize the identity of the apparent self with the Atman. That's why this chart is such a good one with our 3 phases of the Atman there, isn't it? Because we look through all of those phases of the Atman, and then we found the eternal Atman, and that way we came to know that we had completed the Nididhyasana phase and understood it. So that really explains many of these beautiful slokas. But in the time remaining, I want to finish off reading to you the Atma Upanishad. You can go back and look at it more, but in the first 2/3 of it that we did this 2 weeks ago, last Sunday, and today, we've really gotten what Anguras is wanting to tell us about all of this being Atman. You just have to have the discernment to divide it into its external, internal, and transcendent levels. It's the old teaching of the Triputis. You did it with the bodies, and now you can make the connection of it to these 3 phases of the Atman: gross, subtle, causal. But the causal goes beyond to the great cause. So let me finish up the Upanishad here as we wind down. When all adjuncts or coverings have perished, being Brahman, he is assimilated to the non-dual Brahman. Like a man who, after donning and taking off various robes and apparel, is an actor and then is without them. So I put on these clothes, now I'm an actor. I take them off, I'm not the actor anymore. So just like that, the unrealized soul gets realized and puts on, assimilated into Brahman, he says. Now I'm Brahman, you see. If I put on a body-mind mechanism, I'll be, a companion of Brahman. I take off the body-mind mechanism, now I am Brahman. I'm a dualist when I'm in the body, I'm a non-dualist when I'm not. Vivekananda made that remark once. And then he uses the Gautam, famous Gautam, the jar. Just as space becomes space itself when the enclosing pot perishes, so when particular cognitions are dissolved, the Brahman-knower himself becomes nothing but Brahman. So I was Brahman before I took on the pot, the body. and Brahman after it breaks apart. It goes back to the elements. The five elements, the senses, the body, they all go back to nature. But I never was nature. I was always the Atman. I was the Atman when I was embodied, apparently so. I'm the Atman after the pot's broken. So that's that realization of the knower of Brahman. And he uses the pot like that. And then here's one that we just used ourselves at the beginning of class. As milk poured into milk, oil into oil, or water into water, they all become milk, oil, and water. So we have chants like that in our puja where we talk about water, from pure water into pure water. You know, so we pour our consciousness that's contained in this pot of body mind mechanism, and we just pour it right into the vessel, the upadi or the kosha of Brahman. Water becomes one with water. It always was, but it just had the separation of a kosha, you know, a sheath. That water was the same. The air is outside the pot's the same as the air inside. The water inside the kosha is the same as the water outside the kosha. That's the idea. And this is done in worship. You say, oh, look at, he's doing water purification. But nobody's saying, oh, he's just saying Atman is Atman. You see. And they'll come and give you the water afterwards, and you can like put it on your forehead and so forth. But you never say to yourself, water is water. Shude shudanam shiktam tabrikeva bhavatum air eve imever e vijanata atma bhavata gautama is water poured into water. Pure water is water poured into pure water. Evam muner vijanata atma bhavati gautama is the saying. Thus, disembodied liberation is the infinite status of being. Well, you don't find it so directly stated, even in the Upanishads, is that the disembodied state is the truth. People like to opt for the fact that I like to play in the body. That's one stance. That's Leela. Or they'll opt to the fact that I'm a Jivan Mukta. I got free, but now I'm coming back into the body again. I'm a Bodhisattva. But very few people will like to affirm the fact that the disembodied state is the truth. That's your true nature. That's where the hailstone became one with the ocean. That's where the pot was broken, the air outside became the air inside, and there was no more pot to separate them. So it's beautifully put there, isn't it? The disembodied liberation is the infinite status of pure being. Having won that status, no longer is the yogi reborn, for his ignorance-born bodies have all been consumed by the experimental knowledge of being as the self. See, I will be in a body as the self. So I hope he'll never be reborn again, not until he knows himself fully, Vivekananda said. So if you're a free soul and you come back as Jivan Mukti, you still have people saying, well, you're still in the body. You still have the thought thinking, this body must go. That doesn't happen in Videha Mukta. None of that ever occurs. Bondage and liberation may be described as real and unreal, as due to nescience and as due to the concealment of truth. Brahman suffers no concealment whatsoever. It is uncovered. There being nothing other than it to cover it. Brahman is all there is, then what covering is there in Brahman that can cover Brahman? It's very beautiful. The ideas it is and it is not, as regards to reality, are only ideas in the intellect. That's where we want to make sure the intellect knows, meditates and realizes, right? It needs that. They do not pertain to the eternal reality, that is, things, sayings, it is and it is not, do not pertain to Brahman. They only pertain to things that are hoisting themselves over Brahman or being taken away from Brahman. The act of covering, the act of uncovering, that's not in Brahman. So bondage and liberation are set up by Maya and do not pertain to the Atman. In this supreme truth, as in the sky, impartite, inactive, quiescent, flawless, unstained, and non-dual, where's the room for mental construction? Neither suppression nor generation, neither the bond nor the striving, neither liberty nor the liberated exists. This is the supreme truth. This is the Upanishad. Atma Upanisad for us. And it ends with a peace chant. Om Bhadram Karnibhihi Shriyama Devaha Bhadyam Pasyema Akshabir Yajatraha Stirai Rangaish Tushavamsas Tanuvir Vashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Om Swasti No Indra Vida Shravaha Swasti no Prusha Vishvadevaha Swasti Nastarksho Arishtanemi Swasti no Brihaspatiir Dadati Om Shanti 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 Om Shanti 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 Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual. May we, while worshiping the Lord and the Mother of the universe with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Oh, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, and peace be unto all.